It's retrospective time! Initially, I planned for the Roblox God of War retrospective to come first, but with the plans I and my partner in crime have, that's gonna take longer than I thought it would. So in the meantime, let's talk about Raging Roblox Reviewer. First up, a little backstory. I already talked about this when I reviewed my Roblox Wiki article, but it's worth covering for the sake of this video. I started the series without even realizing I was going to do an homage to Angry Video Game Nerd. The original plan was a bog-standard Roblox Plays review show, because that's clearly never been done before, right? I'll get a bit more into that as I talk about the first review. And by the way, yes, I watched Irate Gamer first. No, I'm not proud of it. I'd heard of AVGN at the time, but never watched his stuff because it seemed like it wouldn't be for me. I had enough anger issues as it was. But a curious glance at his channel caused me to realize that Irate Gamer was just copying his homework, so I ditched Irate Gamer in favor of AVGN. Although that didn't actually happen until after the Club Christie review, which is ironic since I attributed inspiration to AVGN. Even my subconscious knew Irate Gamer was a second-rate clone. After that revelation, I sometimes joked to friends and fans about my show being a shameless AVGN ripoff, with the main difference being that I was at least self-aware. Wearing it on my sleeve probably helped prevent most people from unironically deriding it as a ripoff. My first AVGN video when it was hot off the press was Action 52. Better late than never, right? Alright, let's get into it. It all started with OG Reason to Die. You can very obviously tell I was on a shoestring budget and stuck with Windows Movie Maker for this one, what with the infamous flame.png and Spartan editing style. This video wasn't the first to use my voice. The Cat Mario playthrough has that particular honor, but it's probably the video where most people heard my voice for the first time. That, or the Disney sponsorship critique video, but the Reason to Die video got more views in less time and still has exponentially more views. It's not the most viewed, but we'll get to that later. This is a retrospective, not a fact sheet. Still, expect some lengthy tangents here and there. I got a little carried away. So as I was making the review, after recording the footage and starting to put the pieces together with voiceover and editing, I still didn't have a name for the show. Even as you listen to the review, I'm taking a pretty straightforward approach to the voiceover, describing the game, how it's played, all that jazz. It was only during editing that I finally decided on a name for the show. Raging Roblox Reviewer. Why? Because I wanted to do my own angry review show for Roblox, I guess. You'll have to forgive the shortage of details here and there. The mind of 17-year-old, still in high school Jaja Man is a scary place that I'd really rather not go back to. That, and my brain already does a scarily good job of gaslighting me as it is. Sometimes it's not easy for me to distinguish actual memories with memories my brain just made up on the spot. Much like the name of the show was just a spur-of-the-moment decision in editing. The name had good alliterative appeal, and it would help the show stand out from the run-of-the-mill style of reviews that the show was, ironically, originally going to be. Instead of balanced, opinionated reviews, I'd take on a comically spiteful persona. Or rather, that was what I shoehorned the series into being. Midway through editing, I realized that I hadn't actually done anything especially befitting of the persona that I invented on the spot, which I solidified with the low-res flame image that I got from Jacob XX Duels, now known as Reverse Polarity's fire spreading script. Yeah, Jacob had a couple places where you could set fire to some of his creations, but fire as we know it wasn't actually a thing yet. There was no smoke and no fire effect in Roblox back then. So I just used that flame image because finding some free stock footage of a burning flame just never occurred to me. Throw up the disclaimer where I overglorify James Rolfe as a genius. I mean, I still respect his legacy, but in hindsight, calling him a genius even back then was a little cringy of me. Impose it over flame.png, play Beast and the Harlot by Avenged Sevenfold, and that's how I got my intro and show name. Maybe Burn It Down would have fit better with the flame motif, but I only knew 2 Avenged Sevenfold songs back then. Yes, really! Blinded in Chains, which I heard in Need for Speed Most Wanted, and Beast and the Harlot, which I heard in Burnout Revenge. But the very thought of changing the song nowadays would be heinous. even if it did open me up to potential copyright claims despite only using a small snippet. Thanks a lot, fair use! So I needed more tangible justification for the name of the show. And you thought I wasn't gonna follow up after that 200-word tangent. Yes, I just counted after writing it. The one thing I regret about this particular episode is the early installment weirdness induced by my attempt at shoehorning in the raging aspect. It's not until I talk about wasting the pipe bombs that I even gave a half-assed attempt at being pissed about something. A valid critique, but that's all I could muster? In retrospect, like the title? I probably should have just scrapped the voiceover and started over, but it was meant to be a positive review and the thought just never occurred to me anyway for some reason. Starting over was just not conceivable for me, so I kept going. Then again, I suppose you could say that tidbit at the start about Roblox going downhill counts as anger. Or at least, bitter resentment. Most of my voiceover sounds like I'm just fucking bored, like I'm Ringo Starr reluctantly narrating Thomas the Tank Engine.
As you can see, Reason to Die has quickly climbed to the top of the most popular places of all time.
Actually, my narration sounds even more monotone, holy shit.
Reason to Die follows the same basic concept of left.
Come on, Zhao, give it some heart. Even the anger is half-assed.
Ugh, what a fucking waste of a last resort. The survivors must fight off the undead
and fix the audio balance. I can't hear you over the gunshots.
They join the zombies and try to stop the survivors from, well, surviving. If the zombies kill...
And maybe cut down on the dead time, since that really kills the pacing. Jeez, just so many rookie mistakes in this video. Good grief. Maybe the novelty or the sound of my voice is part of what carried me in the end. Now's as good a time as any to point out that when I made this video, I had never actually played Left 4 Dead. I only had passing knowledge of it, if even that. My computer, as you could tell by the footage, wasn't powerful enough to run it, since it was just a low-grade desktop built for office work, not gaming. It was eventually tricked out with a lowly NVIDIA 5500 that could barely get Need for Speed Carbon to look right, and was already dated by the time it was installed into the rig. Christ, I can't imagine going back to that. My high-tier rig has spoiled me. Now that I actually have hundreds of hours in Left 4 Dead under my belt, I can safely say that while Place Rebuilders taking the formula was fun enough, it just makes you wish you were playing Left 4 Dead proper instead. As for the ending, I actually wanted to use the death motif from Left 4 Dead for my unceremonious death, but I didn't know where to find a good rip of it since I didn't know the name of it and didn't have the Google finesse that I have today. Or the ability to reliably record clean audio, as you can tell by the background noise and pop between voice recordings. So in the end, I opted for Death of Kratos from God of War 2 as an homage to the Roblox God of War series. And yeah, you'll notice there's no verdict in this episode. Just another example of early installment weirdness. Verdicts didn't become a thing until the next review. Probably one of the most controversial things I ever uploaded to my channel. Now I know what everyone's thinking about this one, and honestly, I really don't want to get into the drama side of things. That shit's dead and buried, and I'd like to keep it that way. That said, this video was a learning experience in multiple regards. Most importantly was to make it a point to attack the place, not the creator. Or, at least, not as spitefully as I did here. When or whether the lesson was finally heeded is up for debate. You could argue Christina brought it on herself because the whole place was themed around her, but the main problem with that mostly stemmed from her marketing campaign, not the actual place. At least, it was when I went in there for the review. Second lesson. Ensure clear sinuses before doing voiceover. I recorded this one during allergy season and my sinuses were congested to hell and back. And boy does it show.
When you think of one of the best hangouts on Roblox, you're probably thinking about the Iron Cafe. And for one reason or another, there's even a cash register here. What does she expect us to do with it? Rob it?
I'm a lot better at keeping up with my allergy meds these days, but the only payoff for the congestion was taking a cheap shot toward the end of the review. Not that Raging Roblox Reviewers ever prided itself at being a diplomatic show, of course. But there are parts of this video where I feel like I was really blurring the line between satire and just plain mean-spirited. At least most of it was focused on the actual game, and my disdain for clans, pointless as they were. Also, I have no idea who these guys relentlessly stalking me around in the video were. I don't remember inviting them, but this was 13 years ago. I barely remember what I had for breakfast this morning. Though I get the feeling Dom Farrell would really prefer people forgot about the laser collection. the source of Dr. Octagonopus. As a former Roblox personality desperate to distance himself from the game, I can relate. Either way, I couldn't have been happy with those guys following me around given the chat log. If I had more integrity back then, I probably would have just stopped recording and come back later. At least I didn't pay them any mind in the voiceover. The only thing I got out of these schmucks was this guy pretending to have a seizure. Or at least I'm pretty sure he was faking it. I have vague memory of him confessing as much, but I'm pretty sure there are much more potent ways to trigger one's epilepsy than this. As the review comes to a close, I finally figure out what the points were for, and I have to stand by what I said. A system where you just slowly accumulate points or currency over time is a recipe for AFK farming. People should be staying in your place because they're having fun doing stuff in it, not because they're waiting out some arbitrary timer to unlock goodies. This is the first place to get a verdict, for which I later developed a system that never got as much mileage as I planned. Back when I planned to do more of these videos than I actually did, I was gonna have 3 ratings: sucks ass, not sucks ass, and kicks ass. The last one obviously never got any use because the series ended before I ever had the chance. Reason to Die probably would have gotten kicks ass if I was generous enough, but ask me now and I'd have given it not sucks ass. Galleons by Wingman 8 would have easily gotten kicks ass if I ever had the chance to review it. Maybe that's why I never actually reviewed it on my show. There wasn't much to complain about, and I'd have only been able to sing its praises. It wasn't perfect, but it was one of the best games the platform had to offer back then, and was surprisingly well designed and entertaining for its time. But that's neither here nor there. We still have a lot of ground to cover. My destination always unknown, I'll find my way there. I don't remember what got me to turn the comments off of this video, but my first guess would be Thin Skin. It's the most polarizing episode in terms of like to dislike ratio, being the only proper episode to dip below 90% likes. Worth noting, I forget when exactly YouTube retired the 5-star system, but that's beside the point. This time, I was going after a very popular game and calling it a piece of shit straight out the gate. So, obviously, people were gonna get ruffled. This is also the part where I started censoring the ads, whether they were user-made or Google-generated, generally getting progressively cuter and more inventive about it as the series went on. You gotta love that sadistic chuckle I gave Robloxian High School as I teased it being the next review.
And Robloxian High School, you're next.
For which the creator actually asked me to hold off on reviewing until some update or another he was working on. I almost want to say this wasn't really the worst game I'd ever reviewed on the show, but I still don't really understand how this got to be the most popular game of its time. Then again, why does Call of Duty keep selling copies? Some people like their dumb, redundant fun. They're simple people with simple needs. I can respect that. And I get the feeling that's what this game was for people. Dumb, redundant fun. Spawn in, blow each other up, get blown up, respawn, and do it again. There's a cathartic factor to it, even if the formula renders the vehicles like helicopters, the supposed main draw of the game, kinda redundant. But the raging Roblox reviewer didn't exactly roll a natural 20 for diplomacy and considers charisma a dump stat, and you can tell I was really driving the point home this time. I'm audibly angrier in this video.
If you blow part of it up, the helicopter still fucking flies. What the fuck?
Even though my genuine feelings about the game were more indifferent than anything else. As much as I rant about it in the video, the helicopter still working after getting partially blown up is legitimately funny. Structural integrity? Pff, who needs that? Classic Roblox. The game could have used more of that. It could have transcended into self-parody by combining Roblox logic with the Michael Bay style of gameplay it was already leaning into. That, and fix the spawn killing and team killing. I know spawn killing isn't the easiest thing in the world to fix, but even then, if you were crafty, there were ways to ensure that even explosions don't hurt your teammates. I won't bore you with the details, but I know it's possible, if potentially limited. I also seem to remember people yelling at me in the comments, when they were still turned on at the very least, that the AK-47 did have a model, but it got blasted out of my hand. I don't know whether that's true, or if my brain is playing tricks on me again, but I'm pretty sure it was a common sticking point among my viewers. I wouldn't be surprised if that is what happened. Just Roblox things. Certainly not worth ripping the poor guy's ass inside out over, just because he made a mediocre shooter on Roblox. I mean, Jesus Christ. Even by raging Roblox reviewer standards, that was needlessly harsh. Again, blurring the line between satirical and mean-spirited. I'm not even saying that because of cancel culture or some bullshit like that. Besides, I can't get forced off of Twitter when I deleted my Twitter account. While the raging aspect definitely improved for this video, it was a reminder of why AVGN doesn't get nearly as much flack for attacking old games that people generally don't care about anymore. The games I reviewed still had audiences, and they were understandably upset when I was talking shit about games they liked. Then again, that sentence practically describes video game journalism even today. Forward and backward. Some creators didn't take kindly to my videos. Some kinda liked them, and others didn't care. They may have made games that the reviewer didn't like, but they're still people at the end of the day. Some are easier to hate than others. I don't think my video even registered on Drews and B's radar. Why? But that ear-piercing scream at the end of the video probably registered in your eardrums on your first viewing. Sorry about that. That was Cloud8745 fighting Mechaberto in I Wanna Be the Guy, if you were wondering where that came from. I wasn't bullshitting with that intro. I did not have a good time in high school. Like, at all. When I got verbally or mentally abused, for the most part, nothing ever happened. When I tiptoed over the line, they threw the book at me. I'd been putting up with it since fucking elementary, and I do not miss those days. The subsequent loneliness is part of what spurred me to make this channel in the first place. So naturally, this one was a little personal. Not toward lava, mind you, just the idea of simulating life in a place I already hate. Lava had actually messaged me on Roblox asking me to hold off on the review because of some update that was coming, to which I obliged. 10 days after I posted the video letting my subscribers know, the review went live, either because I figured enough time had passed, or I was bored of waiting. And for all that build-up, what's my first complaint about the game? Being a paradise for online daters.
Robloxian high school is OD paradise.
Then I just immediately circled back to the torment of high school because I just couldn't live it down. Yes, I was bitter. Anyone would be if they went through what I did. But this isn't an autobiography, so let's move on. The ad censor this time is a reference to Dom Farrow's Billy Goat Collar short film. And, oh look, Survive the Disasters is at the top of the list. Epic foreshadowing. It's crazy to think it went from 24 disasters to 90 disasters in 14 months. And it didn't have much to show for it. I'm getting ahead of myself, though. I derided a couple of the places as being just more tycoons, and not without cause. Back in my day, tycoon games were everywhere. Not of the roller coaster tycoon variety, mind you. There was nothing skillful or fulfilling about Roblox tycoons. I gave Heli Wars a lot of shit in my review, but you know what? At least stuff happened in it! There's a degree of unpredictability in that game by virtue of it being a PvP shooter. In Tycoons, you just go around doing repetitive, monotonous actions to earn money for the privilege of, well, doing those same repetitive, monotonous actions, but slightly faster. Thanks, but I already wasted enough of my life doing that in RuneScape. More than I care to admit. As someone who already works a redundant, repetitive job, the last thing I want is redundant, repetitive gameplay. And yes, I played some of those tycoons as well because I was young and stupid. Hang on, I just figured out the target demographic. Anyway, I love the irony of me snarking at 1Dev2's Town of Robloxia since I would go on to review it 3 years later. That in one of Sonic the Hedgehog XX's games appearing, providing some more inadvertent foreshadowing. And worse than LJN as an obvious AVGN homage. Wait, how did we get here? Oh yeah, front page. Believe me, that's not going to be the last tangent. Oh hey, Gmod idiot, but oh okay, badges. Well, wait a minute, slow down, you barely even showed the list. It's barely on screen for 2 seconds before I do the math on the number of badges, of which I only showed 7. And thus began the reviewer's disdain for excessive badges. Once again, I throw shade at the creator for arrogance, even though Meet the Creator badges weren't an uncommon thing at the time. If you had enough clout, the mere thought of meeting you in-game was reason enough for people to keep coming back and checking the server list or just joining every day, multiple times a day, hoping that this day will be the fateful day.
This time, it's gonna be different. No, please. This time, it's gonna be different.
Back then, you earned tickets from people visiting your place. 1 visit means 1 ticket. If you keep people in your place, it rises up the ranks onto the front page, where most people will start and end their search for something to play. More people join, you earn more tickets, and congratulations, you just had your first late-stage capitalism. I called him an idiot, but credit where it's due, it was a smart play. Morally bankrupt? Maybe. Effective? You bet. But again, the reviewer doesn't play nice, since the whole point is to take on the persona of a smug, cynical son of a bitch. Something I was a little too good at sometimes. But his takes aren't always without cause, since offering a badge for staying in a game for 2 hours without offering enough to do to fill the time is a recipe for turning Robloxian high school into achievement idol. Being tasked with making your own fun is a tall order when the environment you're given to play around in is as boring as this. Yahtzee actually has a pretty good counter-argument to the notion of you make your own fun in his review of Fallout 4.
Why is it up to me to figure out how I'm going to have a good time with this? That's what I paid Bethesda for. Loud. For.
The obvious difference here being you didn't actually pay to play a Roblox place back then. Not yet, anyway. And Robloxian High School doesn't even give you much to do in the first place. Though it did give you some rather intrusive UI, which I went on an excessive rant about. It's not like I was able to show a whole lot on my own in this slideshow presentation disguised as a video. Yeah, this game was killing my frame rate. I don't blame the game, I blame my computer. That's why I had to send Zach and Jackbob in to get screenshots. It's worth noting that on top of the laughably outdated GPU, my old computer also had an incredibly weak CPU and a measly 760 megabytes of RAM at a time when 4 gigs was considered bare minimum. You'd be forgiven for thinking my rant about input lag and crashing stemmed more from frustration with my computer than the game itself. It probably was, but it set me off properly in this review. And if you've been paying attention to the last few videos up to this point, you'd soon pick up on just how much AVGN was rubbing off on me at this point.
Bottom line, don't add custom music to your place. God damn it.
Bottom line, have a fucking pause button. God damn it!
Oh yeah, and then I used an image a friend made in Gary's mod without crediting him. Whoops. If you remember Mortal Penguin OX from the Burnout Madness videos, that's the guy who made this. I think. Now, obviously I didn't actually say anything so nasty that I'd get cancelled on Twitter, but since I couldn't portray rage through physical interactions like AVGN, this was the best I could do. Besides, leaving it to the imagination was much more effective than showing what I actually said or did. Overall, I summed it up pretty nicely at the end of the video. Big empty map with not much to do in it, like your average modern open world sandbox. Truly, this game was ahead of its time. I love that I started alluding to online daters being a problem, but never actually showed them in the act. You just had to take my word for it. My talents were wasted on this show. I should have been a politician. If you want a good open world game about going to school, might I suggest Bully?
Created by an asshole who runs Fear.
Okay, maybe I didn't learn as much about attacking the game and not the creator as I was letting on, but given how easy to hate the creator is, I'm sure people were plenty willing to let this one slide. Again. So this video was the first in two regards. It was the first review to break the 10-minute mark, and the first review to feature a title card by Patacaro. My snake companion looks genuinely concerned for me over the aneurysm I'm having, or maybe it's because of me spontaneously combusting in a fit of rage. I don't know. I also retired flame.png, which was for the best. I was probably too stressed from having my house broken into by a ravenous fan.
But some crazy fan who shall remain unnamed broke into my house and threatened me to do it or he'll rip out my intestines, so I don't have a choice.
Though that is something I distinctly remember not happening. Almost as if not everything I say is meant to be taken at face value. Not that anyone did, because they knew I was bullshitting. I'd personally be more distracted by that embarrassing typo I made. He has a seriously history of infamy? I think that happened because I combined two thoughts into one, and the grammar doesn't quite pan out. I do that sometimes, even to this day. My brain is a scary place. It's not even limited to writing. Sometimes I slip up on words or trip over my own thoughts and sentences. So if you ever wonder how or why I'd mispronounce words like Molotov, that'd be why. I don't actually remember the full context of the scandals Sonic got into, or if any of it was true. But again, he was easy to hate, and he seemed to embrace the infamy, so I didn't look into any of it. At least I did a better job of showing the excessive badges this time, rather than doing math in the middle of a video and killing the flow. Instead, I opted to kill your ears with a very loud scream for reasons.
Alright.
and then breathing ASMR. I don't remember doing that. You gotta love the badge giver sitting on top of the spawn. That's how you can tell the game creator doesn't know how to script something as simple as an on-entry function into their game. I would know because I used to be one of them. You can find it in my Team Paintball Field of Traps game. Instead of doing the thing where the player loads in, it does a check when the player steps on the spawn plate because all I knew how to do were on-touch scripts. And Roblox was not the kind of game with reliable hit detection, so it barely worked. The sound of caramel dancing as you enter is proof positive that this is, in fact, the early 10s. You can't get much more 2010 than caramel dancing. I also glossed over one other way this video was a first. I formally introduced my companion snake in this video since I'd recently bought the green boa. Saying I prefer to keep him behind in combat alludes to his absence in Roblox God of War. He's not present in Roblox Fun Facts because he doesn't take well to the green screen. I get a lot more nitpicky in this video than in previous episodes, which is good, because that's what the show was supposed to be about. Blowing petty grievances out of proportion. Though, my performance was very low-key here. I just sound straight up bored again. I used to hand-wave it away by telling people I'd spent all my rage on the scream at the start of the video, which was a pretty lame excuse. Funny story about the hotel model, if it's the one I'm thinking of. It was used by a few different people, and given to people like Weirdo King by Ganon Dude, I think, who created it in the first place. How do I know this? Because Weirdo King told me as much. Yeah, I met the guy after using his hotel place as a playground for Cheat Engine, turning the reset tool into a delete tool. I'm amazed no one ever caught on that I was a closet exploiter. I touched on that in the wiki article video, so I won't recount the whole thing, but I'll say this. At least Weirdo King had his justification, if his story is to be believed. Sonic was just being shameless about it. I don't think this was the same hotel, but I'm pretty sure he used that particular building at some point or another. Anytime I voice my uncertainty about a memory, take it with a grain of salt. I'm already spending a lot of my otherworldly energy to make a video with any relation to Roblox in the first place, so I can only spare so much of it to memory of a game I very much want to leave behind. Besides, who would want to associate with a game that had those bodies? If only I knew. You know, I kinda regret not muting the game audio and opting instead to subject everyone to the cacophony provided by the clowns in the DJ booth. With music being turned on and off, you can never be sure whether it's caused by them or by my editing. The sound of my voice only does so much to balance out such an auditory assault. I'd heard worse, but it's still obnoxious. At least my sarcastic humor is on point.
Saddest excuse for a microphone I have ever seen. He should have just pulled one out of free models.
Like the reviews before this one, a lot of the complaints in the review amount to just Roblox things, at least at the time. People got ambitious about some aspects that Roblox just couldn't handle very well, like water. An effort was made. Not by Sonic, but by whoever made the water, and I'm guessing it wasn't him. The whole place just gives off vibes of him just browsing free models and cobbling together whatever he could find. The free models catalog was a good place to start, but not a good place to end. It's like stock Unity assets, helpful in their own right when used properly, but not when you make them the bread and butter of your game. They're a tool for development, not a substitute for effort. Full disclosure, I've used free models in many of my places, but as I gained experience, I made an effort to make them fit seamlessly in the game they were being used in. I would often modify them to suit my own needs and gave credit wherever I could. I didn't take issue with games that utilize free models. I took issue with the fact that that's where they stop.
This is Sonic's private office. It looks like shit. Literally, it looks like shit. The floor is brown, the chairs are brown. It looks like shit.
The irony's not lost on me that I smack talk Sonic's private office, yet I have my own private office in the Dry Bones arcade, visible and accessible only to yours truly. There was no legitimate way for anyone to get in other than me. It was mostly there so I could have a quiet spot away from arcade goers so that they would play the games instead of pester me, while still being able to stay in the game. I don't know if Sonic ever used his office though. The helicopter in this place is also proof positive that whoever made the helicopter spawner didn't know much about coding, because it's only capable of spawning one at a time. Hitting the regen button wouldn't create a new instance like any other system. It would just replace the original with a new copy. Maybe it was intentional to cut down on abandoned helicopters lying around everywhere, but any coder worth his salt knows how to code a failsafe to prevent that. That's one of the problems with relying on free models: inconsistent quality. Not everyone who makes their creations freely available knows how to build or code.
But in conclusion, the place looks pretty good, and there's a lot of stuff in it. Overall, makes me want to hurl.
The end of the review doesn't have a typical sucks-ass verdict because I wanted to mix it up and insisted on referencing AVGN's Atari Jaguar episode, making this the first place to get a non-standard verdict.
We played some good games, some bad games, and overall, makes me want to puke. Like a cat.
This episode is among the most viewed, being among only 4 to break 100,000 views at time of writing. I think that's mainly down to the game I reviewed being a big deal at the time. Sonic was a big name for years for one reason or another. Either you were a stan for him, or you had a hate boner for him. No in between. Not that many of my videos had any impact on his reputation, because everyone's minds about him were already made up. Making a bad place was the least of his crimes. Playrobot actually saw this video and she was chill about it. It was the first time I found myself on good speaking terms with a creator whose place I trashed in a video. The title card for this video— oh sweet Jesus! Talk about a fishing trip to remember. Can I even show that? Jeez. I like that I have to disclose that I never set foot inside the place before, as if that wasn't already the case with every other review except OG Reason to Die and Work at a Pizza Place. Slowly but surely my editing is getting more sophisticated, but it mainly amounts to just editing screen caps in Paint.net. Windows Movie Maker was still holding me back. My audio editing was also non-existent since you could hear every bit of oxygen I was wasting with my existence, and the occasional bit of background noise that I didn't notice at the time. These early videos are rough, man. Having a cardboard tier computer did not help. If you think these videos are painful to watch, trust me when I say they were painful to make. Games ran slow, Movie Maker ran slow.
Wow, not only is this guy arrogant enough to have a badge for meeting him, but he's also got a street named after him.
And I inadvertently misgendered Playrobot. And I made a fucking Simon's Quest reference. There were much better reasons for me to throw my computer out the window than that, believe me. As I try to figure out how to play, I stumble upon the inventory limit system for the produce vendor. I complain about it being too realistic, but I'm pretty sure the main reason it's there is to prevent you from just farming the same produce over and over, because that's dumb and boring. A little lesson on supply and demand, as it were. At least, that's how I would do it, speaking from the viewpoint of a theoretical game developer. I don't know for sure, and it's not like I could just go ask Playrobot since I lost contact with her years ago. That would be an awkward way to re-establish contact. Still, this bit is a great showcase of what the reviewer persona is all about. Petty grievances.
So either the badge giver is broken, or this is just an old server, but if it's an old server, why is it still even here? Shouldn't he have shut it down? Well, that's fucking stupid. How are you supposed to know which server has the badge giver and which one doesn't?
He makes a minor nuisance sound like a first world problem. Ignorance is the punchline. I would hope people would realize that being so petulant as to demand all active servers be shut down just to make a pointless badge work is just part of the act, not unironic entitlement. Either way, the badge didn't work either because it was an old server or because I swung the wrong way. I'll never know, and I won't exactly lose sleep over it, but the reviewer certainly will. He's also not very attentive, and neither was I, really. I didn't realize using the money bag was deducting my funds when I played. The comments section had to point that one out for me. On more than one occasion, I used the persona of the reviewer to hide behind the fact that I was just that unobservant. It helped because that was part of the comedy anyway, but looking back, it almost feels slimy and dishonest to me. My lack of observation skills and continually failing spot checks is not something that went away with this episode either. I also only just noticed that Jedi Knight 123 is in the game with me. I don't remember if he joined me or if it was just incidental, but it's funny to think about since he helped out with a couple of my projects. He built a couple of the sets for Roblox God of War and built a replica of 2 Fort for my TF2 game. All in all, this is another one of those games that suffers from just Roblox things. Buttons you activate by bumping into them, but they're placed so close together you wish they were click detectors instead, though click detectors could be a little hard to code with on that front. Big stock decals, wonky physics, stuff that was just typical of Roblox games at the time. And really, as with most other episodes, it's not as bad as I made it out to be. It gives you the tools you need for role-playing, stuff to do to earn money, stuff to spend the money on. Not amazing, but not fuck it to hell material either. The irony is not lost on me saying I'd only reviewed 5 places prior to Robloxaville, when my total proper review count amounted to 11. The plan was not to stop there, but between school, life, and falling out of love with Roblox, this video marks the midway point of the series. In a way, it was also the end of an era, the last review to be done on my old computer, and the last one to be edited in Windows Movie Maker. Stay tuned for part 2 and I'll tell you all about it.